you know what? Why don't you guys take it away, and we'll deal with the rest later. Oh, I think I see our alum has arrived as well. Maybe she can introduce herself as well.
Oh, that'd be great.
I'm not listening to you guys. I'm so sorry. I don't know if you see me as well.
Not yet.
But we can hear you.
But we can hear you perfectly. Oh, there.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Good morning, good afternoon for you.
So this is our panel for today, and I'm going to let the presenters... Oh, well, wait. Why don't you introduce yourself, Juliana?
Sure. Well, I'm Juliana Marcucci. I'm from Brazil. I'm a lawyer here, and I took my LLM back in 2009 at the EU. It was an LLM in international business law and globalization. And I'm here to share a little bit of my experience being part of Utrecht University and to give you some tips, some advice, and to learn from you as well.
That is fantastic. All right, I'm going to hand the presentation back over to our wonderful presenters and disappear myself. And yes, sounds good. Take it away, guys.
All right, Lo, thank you very much for that well-spirited introduction. And once again, thanks for Juliana for being here as well. Before we get to her experience at Utrecht, Laura and I will give a presentation of about 45 minutes, I would say, covering a number of topics that I'm sure you will all be interested in hearing about. Also want to really say it's so good to see so many people from all over the world joining. I do want to remind people that technically this webinar is meant for students from outside the European Union, and that's mostly because of the information that we'll talk about related to visa and residence permit. Now, don't worry, you can still are very welcome to stay in the webinar if you're not part of that specific group. Just know that some of the information might be different for your specific case. And also, I would like to remind you that there is a webinar scheduled for European students from the European Union at a later point. And probably you can find that information in your email and otherwise on our website. All right, so let's start. These are the topics that we would like to discuss today, to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about. Now, first of all, before you leave, one thing that we'll have to address, the so-called elephant in the room, is of course the crisis related to COVID-19 and the coronavirus. Obviously, health is always going to be our first priority when inviting you and welcoming you in Utrecht. The semester will start on the 31st of August, and we really aim to welcome as many of you as possible on campus. That means that if you can travel and there's no travel restrictions, or you are able to fly into the Netherlands, then we would love to welcome you here. Keep in mind that especially in the first block, much of the education will take place online. Even if you are physically in the Netherlands, a lot of the classes will take place online, at least in the first few weeks or the first block. And if you cannot travel, don't worry. Everything that we offer in terms of our education will continue online, and you can join us when you are able to. And we offer the opportunity to join, for example, for the second semester starting in February. So that's the most important message, first off, right off the bat. All right, now, a few things I want to touch upon is you are all in various stages of the application process when it comes to your study program, but all of you have at least been hopefully conditionally admitted or unconditionally admitted. One final thing that I really would like to stress is that you need to confirm your place in the study program by the deadline mentioned in the admissions letter. So please don't forget to do that and let us know that you will be coming to Utrecht or studying at Utrecht University. Furthermore, keep an eye on the deadlines that are mentioned in your admissions letter regarding the fulfillment of any conditions. So if you need a language test or an additional exam, then please make sure that you respect the deadlines that are mentioned in that application process, because those are important in order for you to start on time. Then, this is a part related to the visa and residence permit. So again, for the ones of you who need a visa and residence permit, this information is for you. For anyone who doesn't need a visa and residence permit, but only a residence permit, or who doesn't need any of those because you are a European citizen, this information is not for you. So make sure that you upload your documents to the Osiris portal and you complete all the payments required. That means that you need to pay the tuition fee in full, provide proof of financial means so that you can support yourself financially during the first year of your studies, and if you've paid the visa application fee. Now, furthermore, you also need to prove that you have health insurance in the Netherlands, or that it's valid in the Netherlands. You fill in an antecedent certificate, as it's called, and possibly a TB declaration form. There is a lot of you who do not need to fill in this TB declaration form. There's a select group of countries that do require this, or students from a select group of countries require this, and this information can be found on our website. For Chinese students, there's also a NAFIC certificate, and this information is also on our website. One thing that we get asked a lot is, do I need to really pay all the tuition fee right away before we can start your visa application? And the answer is yes. The tuition fee payment is absolutely an essential part of the visa application. Without it, we cannot apply for your visa. You will not be able to start your studies here. So make sure that you take that into account. And the deadline for doing all of this is the 15th of June. All right, so after you have uploaded the documents and completed the payments, the application will be processed by the IND, and this is the national agency that, or the national office that deals with the visa application. So Utrecht University, will email you within 2 or 5 weeks with the results of the application. And keep in mind, this can take longer because of the COVID-19 situation. And then once you get the green light from us, you will have to visit the Dutch embassy nearest to you to submit your biometric data. So a photograph, signature, and fingerprints, so that they can create a visa for you in your passport. And then usually a few days later, you can come and pick up your passport with your MVV sticker. And that's the Dutch term that we use for entry visa. All right, so after you have your entry visa, you can make arrangements to travel. And then as soon as you arrive, or after arrival, you start the procedure for receiving your residence permit. You can collect a residence permit card from an IND office here in the Netherlands. And you will also have to register at the municipality, basically telling the municipality that where you live, that you've arrived, and that you are registered at this and this address. And then for those of you who have filled in the TB form, during this time, you will also take the TB test. And again, for many of you, this will not be applicable, but for some of you, this will be the case. All right. How am I doing, Laura? Did I forget anything important?
No, I think you're doing great. I think the only, because I'm taking a look at the questions that I see on the chat. Of course, there are some considerations being made if you have a scholarship, for example, regarding the payment. So all of that information is actually on this website that it's on the slide. And welcome to Utrecht. You can see what are the steps that you have to take if you have a scholarship, for example. So of course, there's more parties involved in this. So that's why we don't get into the nitty-gritty of everything in the presentation.
Right. Yeah, but that's a good addition, though. Indeed, obviously, yeah, individual situations will make a difference. Okay. So another important part is health insurance for non-European students. Health insurance is mandatory if you are studying in the Netherlands, and you can keep your current private or your current health insurance, but just make sure that it covers your entire stay in the Netherlands and that it covers it up to the Dutch tariffs. So inquire with your insurance company if this is the case. And if it's not, or if you don't have health insurance that you want to take with you, you can register with us or with in the Netherlands with Aon Complete Plus. We are not affiliated with them, so we don't really gain anything from sort of giving you this information, but this is something that we've used for, or that students that study with us use a lot, and it covers you for the required stay in the Netherlands. It costs about 55 euros per month. Keep in mind that if you take up a job while studying, you will need an additional or a different type of health insurance, which is called Dutch Basic Health Insurance, or basisverzekering. And that runs up to about between 90 and 110 euros per month. So it's more expensive. And also make sure that you always carry proof of health insurance with you in the Netherlands. So in case of any incident or calamity, your insurance information is right there with you. One little extra thing that is related to financing your study, non-EU students, or students with a non-European Union passport, are allowed to work while they're studying for 16 hours per week or 3 months full-time during the summer period. You will require a work permit, which your employer will have to apply for. So it's a little bit of a process that you need to go through, and depending on the job that you find, your employer might be more or less able or inclined or willing to do that. So always keep that in mind when applying for jobs, that your employer does need to put in this paperwork for you. Again, you will need a Dutch health insurance, so the basic, more expensive version that I talked about on the last slide. And you don't qualify for any student loan, which is different for students with a European Union passport. Okay, so I'm going to move on to housing. Well, yeah, the questions roll in. Please do. I'm not looking at them directly, but our team behind the scenes is answering them. And as Lo also mentioned, we will answer some of your questions after the webinar as well. Now, regarding housing, the good news is that there is many international students and many students in general in Utrecht. It's really, really a typical or a popular Dutch student city, with around 1 out of 5 students, people in the city is a student. That also means that the housing market is kind of tight and tough. A lot of students are looking for rooms, and it can be a bit tricky, or at least it can take some work in order to find housing. So this is something to keep in mind. It can take more time than you think, and it's important to research information beforehand so that you know what your options are and that you have an idea of what you need to do. I also want to draw your attention to our housing webinar, which we have created for you, which is available on our website, Welcome to Utrecht. And there we go in full depth on a lot of topics related to housing. And this is an essential video that I recommend if you really want to delve into this subject. Now, there are 2 main housing programs. The most important one will be the SSH reserved accommodation. You see it here in the blue or teal colored circle. This is a reserved housing accommodation. It opens on June 9th at 9 a.m. Dutch time. I think we'll talk a bit more about that in further slides.
Oh, now you can maybe see it better. The video was kind of on the SSH thing.
Oh, should I do it? Should I remove it like that?
I think I don't know if people can see it now, but it's okay. You said it already, so it's okay.
All right. There's also a regular or a reserved accommodation program from SSH, and there are a few more conditions to be able to be eligible for this. For example, it becomes possible for you to enroll in this program if you've already studied with us for a year. So for students that are joining us for 2 years or are doing a bachelor program, for example, this regular reserved accommodation is another option you can try. Another tip that I can give you is really broaden your search. So don't just look inside of Utrecht when you're looking for housing. As we'll see in the next slides, Utrecht is really not a very big city, especially compared to some of the large cities that you are all from. So when you look online and you just look for Utrecht, you're going to miss out on a lot of housing that is actually really close by. So we'll talk about that. Now, so here you go. This is the circle that you see here, the bigger dotted circle. That is the municipality of Utrecht, roughly, and the science park is located here in this inside this smaller circle. But you can see there's a whole host of towns around it: the Beeld, Zeist, Bunnik, Driebergen, Houten, all the way up to Maarsen, which with relatively doable cycling times. So if for those of you who don't know, in the Netherlands, everything or a lot of transportation is done by bicycle. So this will be one of your main modes of transportation. And this gives you a sense of, hey, even if I live outside of the city, I'll still be able to go back and forth on my bicycle relatively quickly. And this will broaden your chances for looking for a house. All right, to give you further an idea of how big or how small Utrecht is, this is a map of Moscow with an overlay of the city of Utrecht. So I don't know if there's anyone from Moscow specifically in our webinar right now. If so, give us a shout. But you can see, you can get a sense of, yeah, Utrecht is a small town. And even if we zoom in a little bit more, you can see that basically the entire municipality of Utrecht overlays on this, not even, well, more or less on the center part of Moscow. And I see Igor is from Moscow.
Yeah,
so hi.
I see some people there. Hey,
okay, awesome. No, that's really cool. So you guys get a sense of this is the size of the town. So to give you some perspective.
Maybe Juliana, would you like to say maybe something about this regard, about the cycling and the sizes of the city? How do you experience that? I think you're muted. Could be.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
One of the things that I was thinking here, willing to share, is that despite it is a small town, everything was new for me. Since food and people and the weather, but mostly bike. The cycling part was really new for me. And at the same time was really fun and interesting to get this new habit. And it's not a problem at all. I mean, you don't have heels there, so you can get pretty easily everywhere.
That's a good addition to it also. Yeah, that's great.
All right. So this is an overview of some of the websites that you can use to look for housing. There's a few more that we have on a next slide. So this is some of the places that you can go and find housing. And keep in mind, your first and foremost, you should really look at the SSH reserved accommodation. As I said, that opens on June 9th. But should you not be able to get a room through that system, then these are alternatives for you to keep in mind. We also have a lot of information about housing on our website, Welcome to Utrecht. As I said before, the webinar can be found there, but there's also a whole bunch of links with tips and tricks and other important matters that you can refer to. A lot of this we've really gathered over the years because we deal with students coming in every year, and we learn a lot about what the best ways to go about this are. So some of those tips and tricks is, of course, start as soon as possible. Don't underestimate the time it takes. Use your network. There are multiple Facebook groups. If you use the words room or accommodation or housing, you can find a lot of offers that way. Other websites, like I showed in the previous slide, can be very useful. And also consider temporary housing. For example, Housing Anywhere is a platform that offers temporary housing. And this is something that a lot of students do in the Netherlands. For some of you, this might be a bit scary because you think, well, it's temporary, and what if it runs out, and what do I do then? But we know from experience that students who get a temporary room and then manage to get into Utrecht or find a place in Utrecht that way, find it much easier to then move on to a more permanent room or another temporary room that allows them a longer time of stay. Because once you are in Utrecht, you'll meet new people, it's easier to network, and it's much sort of better to go and respond to offers for housing more quickly. And this is something that many Dutch students do as well. So it's a very common practice. I myself, I mean, it's been a while since I studied, but I've moved around probably 8 or 9 times over the course of 5 years or so. So this is something for Dutch. In the Dutch reality, this is completely normal. Again, so look for housing in surrounding towns, not just in Utrecht itself. And if you are going to apply for a house with a lot of Dutch students in it already, then probably the term hospiteren will come into play. And hospiteren is basically when current students pick their new roommate, sort of like a application process. Like if you're applying for a job, you'll present yourself to the house, and then at the end of the session, the house will pick the new roommate. It can be individual, it can be in group, and with the current situation, I imagine much of this will also happen online. So that's an experience that you can that could apply to you. Don't be too picky. Don't really nitpick little things that you don't like about the room. If you find something that meets your basic requirements, just go for it. You can always change your room at a later point, especially if it's a temporary room. Mingle with people, so let people know that you're looking for accommodation. The more you build your network that way, you'll be surprised how many people you know who will know someone who then can lead to a room. So all of that can really help. Yeah, one thing that's very important, whatever housing you do find, make sure it allows registration at the municipality. Sometimes you'll see a post and it will say no registration allowed. Now what that means is that this is a house that you cannot officially register at for whatever reason, because it's being sublet or because the landlord is accepting more people in the house than is possible from the government regulations. So make sure that it always allows registration, as this is a mandatory requirement for your residence permit. And if you are not registered, you cannot keep or not get your residence permit. So that's very important. I wanted to say one more thing, but I kind of blanked. What am I missing, Laura?
I think that's about it for housing. I mean, we do have a lot of information, maybe something about scams. I think it's good to mention.
Yeah. There you go. That's exactly the one that I was missing. So what happens, unfortunately, in a tight market is that sometimes you'll come across offers for housing or for rooms that are not legitimate. And sometimes it's easy to spot them. Sometimes it's a bit more difficult to spot them. So be aware for scams. And if you have any doubts about anything being real or not, reach out to us, because we really want you guys to be able to find a room that you can legally stay in and that actually will be there when you get here. So feel free to reach out to us. We have a housing team standing by, especially in these busier summer months. And so they're there to help you and would love to help you. So please include us in this communication if you have any doubts about the realness of the room you're looking at.
Yes, you can send an email to studentservices@uu.nl and they can help you out with the housing situation. And I think this is my turn of the slides. I will take over, Menno, so feel free to interrupt or add on. So this is the mindset of when you're be able to travel to the Netherlands, come here. We're hoping this is kind of like a difficult and different times. So we're hoping we can welcome as many of you as possible. So we're going to try to be mindful of this throughout this whole presentation. One of the main questions we've been hearing from a lot of students is, when should I start making travel arrangements? So we recommend to do it not after you get your visa, basically. Once you get your visa approved, then you can start looking for flights and making those arrangements. So don't feel the pressure. This what Menno mentioned in the beginning. Don't feel the pressure to actually physically be here on September 1st. It can take a bit longer to come here, and that's okay. So just first make sure you have your visa in order, all of the administration in order. Check what are the travel ban restrictions. We can share a link later on, and there's also a lot of information on the Corona updates on our website, and it's very important to check these things. So that's basically it for this. And just check with the university if you have any doubts. So one of the things that, well, I don't think I've mentioned this, but I'm actually from Argentina. So I saw some people from Chile, so bienvenidos. Hola. So when I traveled here, when I studied in the Netherlands, I didn't even know that, where the train station was, how to get from the airport to anywhere. I think a lot of people will experience this. So the good thing is that there's very good public transport in the Netherlands. When you're in the airport, there is the big airport in Amsterdam is Schiphol. You go downstairs, you go down one floor, and then you have the train station. And the journey from the train station in Amsterdam to Utrecht is around 30 minutes. It goes with a lot of frequency, 4 trains per hour. The only thing about the trains here is that the frequency of them will go a bit lower after 12:30 in the night. There's less trains available. I don't think you will be traveling at that time, but it's just good to know as a precaution. The price is around 9.40, like 10 euros to travel. When it comes to taxis and Ubers and such, it's not super common here, so they're quite pricey, the taxis. So that's why we don't really recommend that much. I think the public transports are pretty good here, and it's fairly easy to do it. So that's why we recommend trains. And the same goes for the buses. Be aware that the local and regional buses are all, they stop around 12:30 in the night. Because everybody bikes, right? So one of the other things from taking the train from the airport, you can buy the ticket at those machines, these yellow machines that you see there. You can buy them with your card. I think after this corona outbreak, cash, it will no longer be common for this type of transactions. Probably you can also buy it online with credit cards and stuff. An important thing specifically about the train station in Schiphol is that you see this like this poles here. Then you need to press your ticket there to kind of like activate it to let them know that you are using it. You could forget to do that when you're running and you have all your stuff, because there's not like a gate that makes you stop from it. So it's important to just be mindful of checking in and checking out. That's what you'll hear a lot when you're using the trains. And I think that's it. So the machines will be in Dutch, but you can put it in English, so that's pretty easy. And there's also people around the station.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that on Schiphol you can usually pay with credit cards for the machines, but everywhere else in the Netherlands, so in Utrecht, for example, you will need to use Ideal, and that's something we'll talk about later, how to get an Ideal, not an Ideal, but a Maestro card.
Yeah, exactly. So another important thing that we have included in our presentation is the use of face masks in public transport is mandatory in the Netherlands as from the 1st of June, if I'm not mistaken. So this is probably one of the measures you would have to comply to use public transport. Another important aspect of public transportation is that in the Netherlands you use the OV chip card. That's those 2 cards that you see there. What's good about the system in the Netherlands is that you would use those cards for any means of transportation. If you take a tram in Amsterdam, if you take a bus in Utrecht, if you go to Rotterdam, and I don't know what else, other types of metro, for example, you would use the same card. So that's pretty easy. It's very easy system. And then you have 2 different types of cards, the blue one and the yellow one. The blue one is the typical card that you will firstly get, that it's like it's an anonymous card. So what you do is just you top it up with, you just deposit money in it through the machines that you saw there. They're in every station. And then you have the yellow cards that are personalized cards with your name and some of your personal details and your photo. And those are cards that you can only access once you have a Dutch bank account. So you can sign up for the discount tickets and things like that. But that's only possible once you have a Dutch bank account. So that's a bit later on. So first, everyone will have, I guess, the blue one. If you've come as a tourist here, maybe you have it still. And one of these important apps that it's very like a must in the Netherlands is the 9292 app. We always say, we like to say it's more accurate than Google Maps. It tells you specifically like where you're standing, what type of transportation you can take, how much you have to walk. So I think it's a very good app to download before you come here. And a bit of suspense for the next slide. It's building up. What will we say?
What will it be?
What will it be? I don't know.
No one knows.
No one knows.
It's the 2 types of trains.
I still don't see it, but I will believe you.
I see it in the little overview on the side.
On the side, okay. I don't. Oh, here. Oh.
No, that's the. No. Yeah, there we go.
There we go. We're here. We're back. The 2 types of trains in the Netherlands. I know a lot of Dutch people don't feel this is important distinction, but I do feel as an international, this is a very important distinction. These are 2 different types of train that when I first read it and I saw Sprinter, I thought, oh, it's a Sprinter, it goes fast. But actually not. It's slower because it stops, it sprints, right? Sprints from city to city, little city to little city. So it can take you a bit or quite a bit longer to get somewhere if you're taking the Sprinter. Rather than if you're taking the intercity. So the intercity connects big cities, the Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, Utrecht. Those are like the intercity connections. The thing is that when you go to the station and you see, I want to go to Utrecht, and you would see that both trains go to Utrecht, but one will take you significantly way more time than the other one. So just be mindful of that. Of course, if you see it from a distance, you see that the trains are different. The intercities are bigger, they have 2 floors, they're yellow, and the Sprinters are usually just one floor. But if you're running, you don't see the difference. So that's why I feel like it's important to make this distinction. Now we're a bit almost there upon arrival. This is one of the few things, or more like a couple of things that administration things that you need to do when you arrive. Men already mentioned it, is the registration with the municipality where you live in, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be Utrecht. Could be another municipality, could be another small village that you're living in. So first make sure that it's under which municipality you fall under. So the Dutch word for municipality is gemeente. That's one of the, also a good, nice word to learn, your first word to learn. What's the important thing about registering in the municipality is that you will get a personalized citizen number. It's called the BSN. And I like to say it's like you become a person in the Netherlands after that, because that's your identification number that you will use for everything in the Netherlands. So after that, you can go to the bank, open a bank account, you can get a phone subscription, you can do a lot of things with that number. For this registration, you will first do an appointment with the municipality. A lot of them you can just, book it online. And then you can bring your passport, your rental contract with you. In Utrecht, it's a bit, I would say, easier because they're more used to having a big influx of international students, so they already know they're coming, basically. So they have a special desk at the municipality for international students. And the good thing is in Utrecht, if you're a student that has applied for a residence permit, the municipality already knows from the university that you have one, and you don't need to bring proof of that. But that's only for Utrecht. So if you have any other questions for other municipalities, please let us know, because we have already experience with them and we already know how they operate. And the good thing is that the building, the gemeente building, is right next to the central station in Utrecht. When you're walking in the central station, you don't see it. You just you just walk past it, so you won't see the big building, but you will see it like from your Google Maps. It's going to say it's here, and you're like, where? So it's just right next to it. So if you don't see it, maybe walk out and then look from a distance and see it's the white building. And yes, we already like anticipated a bit of this about the payments in the Netherlands. Not a big fan of visas and American Express, credit cards in general. This is mostly Dutch people don't have a credit card. So we use Maestro and VPay. Those are the usual means of payment. As Menno mentioned too, perhaps if you're in Amsterdam, you know, maybe in touristic places, very big shops, you might be able to use credit card. But the thing is, if you go to a supermarket, they won't take credit cards. So that's a bit of an uncomfortable situation as a student, that you already have all your stuff and then they don't take your credit card, and it's a bit uncomfortable. So it's good to know. So that's why we say it's not 100% necessary, but it will make your life way easier if you have a Dutch bank account. So you can pay with your card at anywhere, basically. So the cards that you use and the action of paying, it's called PIN. So you will hear, or I don't know if you see it here in the slide, it says here Alleen PIN, and that's like the sign that you will see in a lot of places. They're like, it's a sticker outside the door that basically says we only accept card. Tap the card. So that's why it's a bit easier to have a Dutch bank account for this. You can, if you have a bank account, a Dutch bank account, you have your apps on your phone. Pretty sure most of you have it already. Something similar with your respective banks. And then it's easier to share the costs, split the cost as the Dutch way. I don't know, we have a saying in Spanish about that. Kind of splitting all the costs, that's very, very common. So we use apps like Tiki, for example. So everything for payment, it's way easier. And the ideal sign that you see here, it's basically all of the Dutch banks. So if you see payment with ideal means, okay, it's the Dutch banks. And that's how you pay for tickets, for a lot of like, I don't know, the orders online, stuff like that. Am I missing something, Menno, for payments?
No, you're all good.
Okay. So opening a bank account in the Netherlands, it's actually pretty easy. I would assume that now with the measures, perhaps a lot of things will be available online. I don't know how the banks will evolve with this. We have like, there's a couple of known banks here. We mentioned ABN AMRO, Rabobank, ING. It's not that particularly we recommend one or the other, but for me as an international, I feel like just research the bank, and if the website is in English, for me that's already a great sign that you know, that I don't know, that the contracts will be in English, that the service will be in English if I have a problem. So that's one of the tips I will give. So for the bank's account, you have to pay usually a very small fee. It's around, I think for ABN, for a student package, is 155 per month. That's for the cost of the account. So I think all of them will be around the same price. Required documents will depend on the bank. Some banks are a bit more flexible than the others. Once again, it's best to check with the bank exactly what are the requirements. We say best option is to go to the bank in person, but I would say a bit asterisk, probably just like give them a call and see what is the procedure. Don't forget that to open a bank account, you need your BSN number, or at least having had your appointment in the municipality, and you can probably call the bank and maybe arrange something. Another important and fun thing to do is join our orientation days. Unfortunately, this year we won't be able to welcome you physically. Last year we did, I think there were two days. They did a barbecue, I think, with all of the international students. It was very nice. But they're working right now on doing an online or an alternative to be able to provide the same type of information they will provide in the orientation days. So their banks were present, student associations were present, health insurances were present. So I think they will work on a nice alternative. You will be formally invited to this, I would assume, around August. And more information will also be available at our website. Welcome to Utrecht. Yeah, you can find all the information. We try to keep it as updated as possible. So let us know if you can't find anything, we'll be able to add it. And one of the, of course, cultural and very big aspects of being in the Netherlands is getting a bike, getting around the Dutch way, we say. It's also social part, a big part of it. So the most usual thing is to buy or rent a bike. Sorry, my screen froze for a second. To buy or rent a bike from around 50 to 100 euros is more or less what it costs to have I would say, honest, good bike. It's not very common to buy a new bike in the Netherlands because this is a very safe country, but the bikes get stolen pretty easily, so don't get a new bike. There are different ways of buying a bike. Mostly it's online through Marktplaats. That's the Dutch eBay, we say. Also good for getting books and secondhand things. Facebook groups also selling bikes, or the renting of bikes is also possible through swap feeds, for example, that you pay around 14 euros a month. And then you get a new bike, and then you get all the service that comes with it. If it breaks, then you can immediately just like call them and they replace the bike. So it really depends on your budget, what you like. And we're in the last part of the presentation about student life. That's the fun part. We'll see how that evolves also. I think an important mention that we would like to give is to the well-being and development. We have a lot of information about it on our students' website. Basically, how to cope a bit with, well, being far away from home, being able to balance the work and life. Basically, if you're having trouble with studying, or how can you, maybe you feel like you're not being able to grasp everything, you can get all the information about counselors and study advisors for this. So all the information is there, and just to feel that you're not alone in this process, that we're all going through difficulties, and it's good to have each other in this community. A bit of information about sports. We have a sports center at the university, the Science Park, where you can practice more than 70 sports. It's quite cheap alternative for students. Right now, unfortunately, it's closed, but they're giving a lot of online versions or possibilities. And there's a lot of other gyms, so I'm pretty sure this will slowly develop, and we'll see what options they can offer. And there's also for other type of activities that maybe you're not into sports that much, then you can go into maybe a cultural aspect. So we have a cultural center in Parnassos. This is more located in the city center, towards the city center. So the other one is in the Science Park. This one is in the city center. You can practice music. If you have your instrument, if you have an instrument that you play, you would like to book a room, for example, you can do that at Parnassos. You can dance, you can sing, photography, drawing lessons, all of this. And there is also a bar there, and I think there's student housing right next to it. So it's quite a nice, lovely place to be. And for learning Dutch, also, one of the questions is, should I learn Dutch? Is it really necessary? We always say that you don't necessarily need to learn Dutch. This is more like a fun activity or project if you would like it, unless you're thinking to stay in the Netherlands for a bit longer. If you feel like, okay, I'm gonna do my life here, I'm gonna try to find a job, then we recommend you learn Dutch. But for the rest, everyone speaks great English here. So it's not really necessary, but we have some options. A lot of it you can do online. So there's a course at the university that probably you will get information from in July or August that is called Get to Know the Dutch. Just a very social phrases to socialize with people. Hoi Holland, so it's a nice app. Duolingo, you probably know that. And if you want to get like a good course, then you can go to Babel. That is a language institute that's a bit more, I would say, more serious way of learning. Also, the municipality offers some courses. And student associations too, by the way. This is kind of like a nice slide for people who maybe not aware or don't know about shops that are present in the Netherlands or in Europe, for that matter. I didn't. So over to the left, there's the usual places to get your furniture or appliances, the Blokker, IKEA. Ethos is kind of like a pharmacy sort of thing that you can buy your shampoos and stuff like that. The middle one is the supermarket. So Albert Heijn is the usual supermarket you will find everywhere, but be mindful that it's quite more expensive than any other supermarket, especially if it's small supermarkets, very small one, then you know it's quite more expensive. Nicer student budget are the Aldi or Lidl supermarkets. I'm a fan of the Lidl. And then Jumbo and other options. And then Action, Hema and Kruidvat, it's kind of like everything else that you might need and you didn't know you needed. Basically anything you can get at the Action, at the Hema or the Kruidvat, basically everything. So it's a fun adventure to go to these places. Also, nice mention to the Dutch food. What can you expect about the food in the Netherlands?
I'm getting hungry just looking at this.
I was going to say don't expect too much of the food, but sure. I don't know what Juliana thinks of this, but about the food in the Netherlands.
She has no opinion, or she's muted.
I mean, we all have an opinion about this. Maybe she's muted.
I'm sorry. I can barely hear you guys. I'm so sorry about that. I think it's an internet connection. Did you ask me anything?
What do you think of the food in the Netherlands?
Well, back there, I was not a vegetarian, so today I am, but not at the time I wasn't a vegetarian. I would say it's amazing because it's really, really different from Brazilian food. And it's a fun food to have because you have like everything for me. I mean, I'm a Latin American. I'm used to rice and beans, so everything else is just snacks for me. And so I had fun having Dutch food because it's really good to have like fries and the little balls and everything. So it's pretty good.
Yes, indeed. It's an adventure. I would call it an adventure.
It is.
It's a different thing. Also, we made an honorable mention to the bread. It's been eaten a lot in this country as lunch, so it's good to know. It's fun. You just go and try all these things and tell us what you think about this. And for the last bit, just a couple of things about the Dutch culture. I don't know, Juliana, what do you think is the most? What do you think of all these is the thing that you remember the most?
Well, for me, I think it's the 3 kisses.
Yeah.
Because Brazil is huge, so we have this difficulty here as well. For example, sometimes in São Paulo, sometimes you use 2 kisses. In 1 kiss in Rio de Janeiro 2. So I'm always confused about that, and I think there is 3 kisses, right?
Yeah.
So then you get that awkward situation, but we have a lot of international people, so everyone is aware that at some point this is going to happen. So just relax and enjoy.
Yeah, the trick is to do left, right, left. That's probably the best way to go without getting too much complication. But I hear you. This is happened many times. Also the other way around. I'm obviously, well, I am a Dutch person, so I've gone abroad and then I would have had 2 kisses and I would stay for the third one, which was never coming. So it works both ways. The confusion.
Yeah. That's sometimes weird, but that's okay.
Well, but I don't know, it's like maybe, I don't know if it's too soon for a joke about this, but you know, with COVID now, you just wait.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
we don't do that anymore. No more awkwardness.
I almost forgot about it for a little second there.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry you were living in a different, like, nice world without COVID.
Nice little bubble.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm being direct, Dutch directness, you know.
Yeah. Another thing I think is worth mentioning is that back there you used to have the Queen's Day, right? It was 2009. So the Queen's Day, which is now the King's Day, it's simply amazing. It's a whole new experience for me. Everything is orange, which is pretty cool, and everyone is happy and enjoying the culture. It is in Amsterdam, so mainly, right? I think I'm not sure. I don't remember if there was anything in Utrecht.
Most cities have a celebration, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool party. It's really nice and really beautiful too.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
Well, maybe this is a good segue to have Juliana present a bit about her experience. What do you think, Laura?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, Juliana, if you want to, if there's anything you want to add or something you would like to share, please go for it.
All right, so I was thinking about, because I could stand here the whole day talking about my experience in the Netherlands because it was so unique, but I just selected some stuff that I think it's useful to share for those who are coming there now or pretty soon. First of all, if I may use a couple of minutes, just like to introduce myself, my background. I got my bachelor here in São Paulo, and then I moved to the Netherlands to get my master's, and then I came back to São Paulo to work, and then I got my doctorate in the US. So getting my LLM in Utrecht made the whole difference for me during my career and my academic path, and also my personal life too. I will say that I got some notes here, so I don't want to forget anything, but to go abroad, and for those who this is going to be the first time studying abroad, especially in my case that was law, and law is different in each country of the world. It's a unique opportunity to study in a global perspective, because you are in another culture, you are learning in another language, and you are sharing your learning with people from all over. So this is something that amplifies your view when you come back to your country, or when you're looking for a job anywhere else. You have a bigger perspective of the opportunities that you may cross to. So this is one of the advantages I would point and benefits that I got from studying in UU. Another thing is that today I'm an environmental lawyer. I'm head of the environmental law department of a law firm called Martinelli Advogados, which is one of the biggest law firms in the country. And to become an environmental lawyer, my LLM in Utrecht was decisive, because I could say something that I really want to share is that the curriculum of the several courses the university offers, it's so wide. You have so many options, and it's so congregated that you can learn a lot of things, and you can put all on the table and to analyze which one you identify more. So it helps you a lot to choose your path, your future, or in which matters you want to invest your career into. So this was decisive for me to become an environmental lawyer, my way in Utrecht. And another thing is that I was really fortunate, because not just the curriculum has this point of view, I will call focused on the environment, on human rights, on social issues. There are now, especially now, in our talks, in our feelings and thoughts, that Dutch people is this way as well. People who lives in the Netherlands, all of them are so into this kind of stuff, social stuff, environmental stuff, that I consider myself really fortunate to have this experience in the Netherlands, which is a pretty cool environment to be as well. Another thing is that it was also a challenge for me, because this was the first time that I was studying law in another language, which was English. By the way, we were talking about learning Dutch. I tried and I was already struggling with my English, because one thing is just to chat in English, the other thing is to study and to get answers on it. So I don't think my brain had enough space for both, but admire so much who does it, and I recommend it because it's pretty cool. The classes are pretty cool to learn Dutch, especially for those who speak Portuguese and Spanish, because it's really, really different. And another challenge, as we mentioned before, was the food, the weather, because I come from a really hot country, and I saw there a lot of rain. I'm from the countryside of São Paulo, where we don't have much rain around here.
Lucky.
So all of this, I'm sorry?
You're so lucky.
Oh, no, it's too dry sometimes, too dry, especially now in the winter. But you can find a balance. And all of this, and I must say, especially the cycling, as we mentioned, because I fell off the bike too many times. And I chose to face all of this, not as challenges and difficulties, but as opportunities for self-development. And this is one of my advices for all of you. When you see stuff that is really different from what you're used to in your daily basis, just try to have fun, to learn and understand why people think that way, why do you use a bicycle, why do you eat those kind of foods, and enjoy the experience. This is the way you can make the most of your experience studying abroad. Always be open. Be open to new points of view, to new way of clothing, to new ways of transport, everything. And then if you think out of the box, instead of wasting time, as sometimes I did, I must confess, just like complaining or being resistant to some differences, to some changes, just think out of the box, and then you can take the most of your trip, of your study, and this will have a consequence afterwards. This is the last point I wanted to talk about here, which is when you come back, or when you move, or when you finish your studies. When you are studying abroad in a different culture, this gives you a wider perspective, and then you can see more options in front of you for what you're going to do next. In comparison when you are in your place, in your comfort zone with no challenges. So I guarantee you that for facing that challenges, afterwards you have more opportunities when it comes to jobs, when it comes to your personal life. And about personal life, I must say I felt at home in Utrecht, because facing those challenges, I always had someone by my side, especially faculty members, to help me to understand, to find alternatives to my difficulties. So you were never going to be alone. And also, I have one of the greatest gifts in my life, which was a group of friends that I made in Utrecht. Because as you can see, you have people from all over the world. And nowadays, I still keep in touch with them. And yesterday I was talking to them, I was like, hey, I'm gonna help Utrecht University presenting some of our experience. I'm talking about you guys there. And for you to have an idea of how much diverse it is to study there, my group is formed by one American, 2 Ukrainians, 2 Frenches, 1 Costa Rican, and 1 Filipino. So it's a quite diverse group. and we talk to each other every week. I've been to a wedding in Costa Rica. Some of us have met a couple of times in Europe and in US. So this was one of my greatest gifts besides the knowledge that I acquired there. And so this was pretty much a little bit of what I've lived there, my advices, and I thank you guys for this opportunity to share my experiences. I thank you that are listen to me, and feel free to come to me and ask anything you want. You can mail me. I don't know if you guys can share my email. I'm at everyone's disposal to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juliana. So we're running a little past time now. So presenters, if you have anything more you want to say to sum up, now would be good. And then I have some questions for you as well.
I think it's time for the questions indeed.
All right. Let's get to it then. I've got a couple funny ones here. Let me go over to my question box here. Like this one.
Right. Who wants to take this one? And yeah, Juliana, if you want to answer any of these questions also, please feel free to jump in.
My God, this is so tricky. Because, okay, I must be honest. You have those, do you call it silver bugs?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. I'm so scared of them.
What is so?
But they're like,
they're quite harmless, right?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well, but I think I get the message. But they're really small, and because the Netherlands, and please Dutch, correct me if I'm wrong, because I got like a PhD on these kinds of bugs. It's wet there, so it's cold sometimes, most of the times, so your house is all closed, and it gets humid inside. And if you let it happen, you get silver bugs. And they are silver and they are really small. And I don't like them. But there's nothing to worry. This is just me.
All right. I've got another question here. This one I kind of already answered in the chat, but I thought maybe you guys could say a little bit more about it. Let's see if I can pull it up.
Yes. Oh, can I say something?
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the things we always say to students is like, please make a Dutch friend, and please be invited to their birthday parties, because Dutch birthdays are something else. So when you come to a house and you open the door, and maybe it's their parents' house or something like that, you open the door. And they congratulate you for the birthday of your friend. And then you also have to congratulate the relatives of this person. So it's a bit of like, there's congratulations flying around all over. It's quite weird. You're like, well, it's not my birthday, but I think it's really nice experience. You will also experience sitting in a circle and eating some snacks. You will experience all of this. You'll laugh about it. I think it's really fun.
Yeah, but that's indeed true. You congratulate everyone in the birthday party with the birthday of the birthday person. So that's just indeed congratulations flying around everywhere. And that's, as a Dutch person, I never considered this to be a weird thing before I started interacting with people from outside the Netherlands in my teens. And then I realized, oh, this is really basically the only place where you do that. So that's why it's special.
And Menno, how do you say congratulations in Dutch?
Gefeliciteerd met je verjaardag.
Oh, that's
bless you.
So I'll take this one. Does speaking Dutch provide an advantage in procuring jobs? Yes. Even though everything is understood in English and people speak English everywhere, it will help you a lot if you speak Dutch in order to find a part-time job or a job after graduation. Simply because in many jobs that you'll have to interact with people in a customer service setting or people who are native Dutch speakers, and they would prefer to be addressed in Dutch in many cases, or your boss might demand or would require you to speak Dutch. So this will definitely help. Even after graduation, getting a job, it also helps if you speak Dutch. because it will just make it easier for you to interact with people in the workplace.
I got another question here that seems related.
Yes, regarding the career counseling services provided by the university, we have a career services at the university. And also, I think we had a slide on well-being and development, and that's also a lot of information about counseling there. So yes, we do provide some counseling there. There's usually the university organizes job markets, sometimes that are good for networking and like be able to practice a bit what it's like for it to be in an interview, things like that.
All right, I think I'm gonna maybe do one or two more questions. This one I'd be interested to hear about from Menno, since he's our Dutch friend. What could I do to you, Menno, that might make you suddenly think?
Wow,
Wow.
It's a tricky one. To be honest, I think I will have to sort of revert back to what Juliana said as well, is that being open-minded can help a lot. And I think that in general, speaking as a Dutch person, speaking for Dutch people in that sense, I think we are typically quite open-minded and more or less down to earth. So direct communication is definitely something we prefer. We prefer you to state what you want or what you would like to do or what you're going to do, rather than having people guess what it is that you want or rely on like very sort of subtle social cues to get what you want. So if there's any faux pas or something you really shouldn't do is expect that Dutch people understand what you mean without being direct about it. So another way to say it is just to come out with what you want. It's probably better to ask directly or say, talk directly than to beat around the bush. So beating around the bush is a bit of a faux pas. Maybe that's one of the answers I can give.
You just described my style of communication before I came to the Netherlands. That's basically very common in Argentina. I would say in Latin America it'd be like this.
Maybe Juliana has a perspective on this. What do you think?
I'm so sorry, guys. I heard Juliana, but I couldn't hear the question.
Is there anything that you really shouldn't do if you're in the Netherlands to upset a Dutch person?
Socially,
yeah.
I think not only Dutch people, but anyone from abroad. I don't think it's nice if you criticize without knowing. I'm so sorry if you mentioned this already, because the sound is awful for me. But I think when you criticize someone else's reality without knowing the whole picture, this is something you should avoid.
Good all-around advice. So for our last question, I think I can answer this one. Yes, you can watch it later. It will be available on our YouTube, and we will be sending out a link to it. So don't worry about that. I think there's nothing left, and we can all say goodbye now. Do you have anything you'd like to say, presenters, alumni?
Well, I'd like to thank Juliana for her time at the webinar, and it's really, really helpful that you joined us. It really is great to hear from your experience, not just in Utrecht, but also how you've used your program afterwards. I'm so happy that so many of you joined, even if it's in an online format, and I hope to be able to see as many of you as we can in Utrecht.
Oh, I see, I never ended the poll. Well, feel free to answer this. We're going to take off. I'm going to close the voting in a second, and all of you have a wonderful evening or afternoon or morning. And thank you very much for attending our webinar. And hopefully someday soon we'll be able to meet you in person.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Hope to see you
Bye,
soon.
everyone.